This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets, episode 153 from the Subway to Shea studios in my office. And I got my guys here, Key from Shea and Sons. I got David from Top Bunk. Keith might be joining us. He might not be joining us. We're on the wait for that, but I'm still having trouble trying to link this Twitter thing going on, so I can't even play this on Twitter right now. I don't know what it is. I subscribed to premium. It's still not working. I don't know, but we're on YouTube. We're live right now. Fellas, I hope you guys are doing well. I know it didn't end well this weekend for the New York Mets, but how are you doing, Key, my friend?
Yeah, man. The weekend didn't end so well. So that puts a damper on things, but the way that it started and the trade that was made, a lot of interesting things happening right now as the trade deadline, you know what I'm saying, gets closer. So I don't know, man. I think this team has more moves left, if I had to guess.
I sure hope so. I mean, they cannot go into Wednesday without a starting pitcher, in my eyes. I mean, that is the number one target after what we've seen over the last 3 days, because I'll even include the Kodai Senga start, and we'll get into what happened to him as we move on in the show. David, man, how are you doing? I know you were at the game like me Saturday. We talked about it off air, but man, it's been a rough couple days. Did we lose David? Did he freeze on us?
Oh, man. I think he did.
I think he froze on us. We got and the technical issues start now. So we'll get him back up. We'll get him back up. Let me see if we let me drop him here. We'll get him back up shortly. But let's get right into the show. As soon as David comes back, we'll have him going with us shortly. But make sure you're following Subway to Shea podcast on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me at Rivera86. Subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube to get all of your content from Subway to Shea. And Key, tell everybody where they get you at on Shea and Sons, my friend.
Yeah, so you can follow at Shea and Sons on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? We do reply, talk heavy on there. Also, Keith does his spaces before and after games, I know, pretty routinely, so you can find him there as well. So, yeah, YouTube, Twitter, everything.
Get on it, everybody. Make sure you're following not only myself, but Shea and Sons. Make sure you're following Top Bunk, and he'll be back shortly. But let's get right into it. I wanted to start off with a little bit of a recap because I haven't been on since the return from the All-Star break. And I said how important this week was for the New York Mets. And they got off to a split with the Marlins.
Yeah.
But a big, huge 2-game sweep against the New York Yankees in the Bronx. And then they come home, they win the first 2 games, got 5 in a row, and that kind of set them on the right tone with the Braves to get this in motion that this team was going to be legit buyers into this trade deadline. Now, I don't know where it comes with trading prospects and how that's going to work out. I know we saw one of their top 20 prospects go in the Jesse Winker trade.
Yeah.
But, the Mets did what they had to do during this run from the Marlins, Yankees, and Braves series to get them in contention for being buyers at the trade deadline. I mean, what did you like seeing from this team this week? And, how did you react to all this stuff with the trade deadline coming up and looming here?
Yeah, so I thought that coming out of that Marlins series, it was very underwhelming. The way that the team played, it was more like Jeff McNeil reliant in terms of the offensive numbers in that series coming out of the break. So they needed to win, at least split with the Yankees. Going on the road there, it could easily turn into 0-2 that were down in the series going up in their home field. So I thought that what was great about that was that it almost sent the message, I guess, to the fans that they're serious game because both of those games because the way that they played, there was so much hype, I guess, like energy around that game about those two games actually, and then the way that they came out in the second game and Mendoza having a coaching masterclass the first game, pitching around Judge, playing Jeff McNeil up in the order. It was just it felt right coming into that Braves series. I felt like we had a lot of momentum going into that, and we answered right away. But then Senga goes down. We didn't hit against a rookie pitcher, Schwernberger. Is that was his name?
Yeah, Spencer, another Spencer on the Atlanta Braves, but
Yeah,
he looked
11
like Spencer
strikeouts.
Strider.
Yeah, he was insane. He was moving up and down the box throughout the entire game. Like he got off to a fast start. I think he had almost it was like 2 2/3 with 5 strikeouts. So he started off really quick on our lineup. But yeah, man, I think that the past week, I think they showed us that they look like a playoff team, at least to me. So it's good that we're getting an aggressive move or two. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. They they had to play at a different level just to get to this point, and just to get to the fact that they needed Jeff McNeil of all people, right?
Yeah.
Like after all the struggles,
Yeah.
this season from Jeff McNeil, that they finally got him to get to a point where he was contributing in big ways. I
Yeah.
mean, because for most of the season, he's just been a non-factor. And the fact that he was coming up with big hits, the fact that I think the first half of the season he had 4 home runs,
Mm-hmm.
and then he had 5 home runs, and then
5 and going into 4.
Yeah, going into the second half, that this whole week was 4 home runs. So, kudos to him for getting himself going. I said that the Met fans had to show out at the start of this series against Atlanta, and it just felt like a playoff atmosphere. It wasn't completely sold out, but the fact that the atmosphere felt like a playoff game, I thought was a perfect, even including Saturday. You could throw Saturday in there, although, once McGill started pitching, kind of put everybody to sleep, like me and Top Punk here. Top, man.
The energy's been crazy at Citi Field. I just wanted to add that in. Like, it's been
absolutely
unbelievable. So I hope it continues.
Yeah, I totally hope that continues to go on and people don't get lost in what happened these last 2 games, because the Mets made a couple of moves and I still don't think they're done yet. David, man, what did you think of this whole entire week leading up to the Mets, officially becoming buyers? Because we didn't know, right? Coming out of the All-Star break, we had no clue what they were going to do. Maybe it was minimal buying or a little bit of selling, but right now they're 100% in the thick of buying, to the point where, they possibly need a top line starter, coming into Tuesday.
Right. Yeah. I was fully on board. I was fully on board with it. Just based on the way they were able to change their momentum, going into June and going into July. Obviously it just sucked that, when it came to the most, in my opinion, one of the most important games of the year against the Braves, they started out very well. Guys were attacking their pitches early, but then when it came to the third and fourth game, it was kind of like the offense just died, just completely died. But I like the fact that David Stearns and Steve Cohen are kind of going with the transition. The guys ended up finding a way to turn it around, and they're like, hold up, wait a minute. All right, these guys are actually in the hunt for a playoff spot in the wild card. All right, now we're shifting gears. Now we're going into buyer's mode, and we're gonna see what we can add there. It's unfortunate the whole Kodai Senga thing happened, but I think the Kodai Senga thing kind of gave them a direction where they needed to go in terms of what they needed to add. So I think there's a little bit of positive in that, in terms of what they were able to do with that. But I was totally on board with it from the start. And I'm just happy, again, that we're not in a situation like we were last year where we had to completely sell and punt the season away. They actually turned it around, and some fun. It should be a fun time coming up Tuesday, depending on who they add.
Yeah, I just, with all that's gone on this season with this team, all the ups, all the downs, starting off 0-5, having that terrible May that they had, like they've always figured out a way to get themselves right back where they've needed to be. And
Yeah.
I don't think that this team is just going to fall apart, like they did in the earlier half of the season. We know that this offense right now, as constructed is what, like hit or miss, right? I mean, we're gonna have games where they're completely on. We're gonna have games where they're completely off, like the last two games. I knew on Friday when they scored. What was it about? How many? How many were they scored? 8 or 9 runs on Friday.
Was it not?
Yes,
I thought it was 11.
I believe it was 8 runs. They won 8-4.
Oh no, 8-4. 8-4.
Yeah.
Yeah. 8-4.
Anytime they score like 8 to 12 runs,
Yeah.
I have to go to the game the next day. And I know that they're not going to score. And that compiled with, seeing Tyler McGill pitch made for like the absolute worst experience possible. But, I want to get into some of these comments here in the chat. We got a lot of people up in here commenting here. And shout out to Shea, parking lot, say not as many bombs as Ryan Stanek inning. We're gonna get into Ryan Stanek real quick. I'm not totally giving up on the guy after one performance. But we've seen a lot worse from Adam Ottavino, who can only get 1 out a game at sometimes. But today, obviously, he was able to get 3 outs. But we'll get into him. Maureen out there, how you doing, Maureen? Shout out to you. Shout out to Blue Shirts Banter as well. And, I want to get into Kodai Senga because you had mentioned him. And let's talk about this injury to Kodai Senga. High grade calf strain. It didn't look bad, right? It didn't look bad when we saw it. But as soon as I saw him go down, the first thing I thought of was Aaron Rodgers. That was the first thing that came to my head, that we were witnessing another Aaron Rodgers event here. And man, this just sucks, man, because the guy worked so hard to get back. I didn't even mind missing him the first half of the season. I said, you know what? Take your time, do whatever you got to do to get ready, and then we can have you for the stretch run. Not only does he come back to pitch against the Atlanta Braves, the guy was dealing, man. 9 strikeouts he had, and it was a fluke injury. I mean, he's just getting out of the way so that Pete Alonso can make that, pop fly catch. And the guy just falls, and that was it. It was like Ike Davis style. I don't know, guys, man. This was a tough pill to swallow. What do you think, Key?
Oh man. The fact that you brought up Aaron Rodgers, damn man, I ain't do nothing. I ain't do nothing to you. Why you gotta bring that up? But nah, I'm joking. I think yeah, man, it felt like such a Met injury. Like I hate to do it, but like it felt like such a Met injury.
Oh, it's so Mets. It's so Mets.
Yeah, it like it could not have happened to any other team but us, and that's what sucks about it. But also the fact that, like Senga looked lights out. And last year when we first saw him, we saw that he could get himself into trouble quite a bit if he's not on his game from the jump. But he could always recover. And we saw that, like he pitched lights out after he gave up his runs. I thought that, for the most part, he looked great. He looked like Senga from the middle of last year, where it just felt like he couldn't be hit almost in some of the starts. So that was a good sign. It just sucks the timing because, I hate the saying of like, oh, an injured player coming back during the trade deadline is like adding a piece. I usually hate that saying because that's like a cop out for most of the teams, especially small market teams, especially for the Mets. They've done it to us in the past. So I kind of, the trajectory that we were going, I was kind of counting on that piece. And maybe we could flip one of the guys like a Manaya or somebody. But now that gets taken out, and we might be looking at trying to add a starting pitcher now. So,
Well, even Shea Parking Lot in here says we need two. We were counting on Senga and getting another starter. Now we need two of them from the outside. We can't count on anyone from AAA unless you move Budo to the rotation and let McGill be a part of the bullpen. I don't think they're going to get two starting pitchers. I would be shocked if they do. I think it's going to be one starter, one reliever, if anything. They might not even get a reliever.
Yeah.
So, we saw that they had to give up Tyler Stewart to get Jesse Winker in here. If you're giving up anything to get a top flight starting pitcher, I mean, you're going to be giving up something in the top 10 at the very least when it comes to getting a starting pitcher on this roster. David, man, this injury right here, it's just a killer. I mean, because now he's on the 60-day IL. His return is like September 26th-ish, or possibly if they can make the playoffs. I even thought when Christian Scott went down that I could not possibly trade any of the starters, and that's including Jose Quintana, who was the first one that I was like, you know what, maybe they could trade him, get something, some minor leaguer or something for it. But as soon as Christian Scott went down, I was like, nah, I think we're going to have to hold on to all these guys, because the next step is what we saw the last 2 days. It's Tyler McGill, which we've seen too many times already, and it's David Peterson. And he's actually pitched well.
Yeah.
But, he doesn't give you as much length either.
Right. Yeah. Listen, it's a bit of it's like a punch to the gut. Because it's the Christian Scott. Once the Christian Scott injury came out and they said what he had, I knew it. I had automatically knew it. Like, there were people speculating, like, oh, is he gonna be out for the year? As soon as they said UCL, I think it was exactly. I knew it right away. I was like, he's done. He say goodbye. We're back to when Senga comes back, we're still on a fifth man rotation, and then the unfortunate part is that Senga obviously got hurt the way he did, and it's a gut punch. You talk about the adversity that this team as an organization, as a whole, did what they did to come back and put themselves in position to possibly get in, to get into playoff baseball, and you have to deal with that. It's like I said, it's a gut punch, but the worst thing that they could do, in my opinion, is move Jose Budo to the rotation, and not because that's a bad thing, but because he looks so comfortable. And the entire year, you've talked about needing to add to the bullpen to find some consistency with the bullpen. And he's that one guy alongside with the Daniel Nunez who's been able to find consistency in that bullpen and be lights out. So I think if you kind of take him out of that bullpen, you put him in a pressure situation where now he has to become a starter. You don't know what that kind of does to a guy where he's kind of found some comfortability in one spot. So I think they need to go out there and obviously get a starting pitcher. If it costs, like you said, a top 10 prospect, so be it. You know what I'm saying? I've had conversations with Key and his brother about, listen, these prospects are not panning out as we thought they would. Jet Williams is not. Brett Beatty is not. You don't know what you're going to do with Acuna. So if you don't know what you're going to do with Alex Ramirez, those are 4 pieces right now where you could tell teams, yo, look, I got these 4 guys right now where we don't even know if they're going to pan out or not. What can you give? Can you give us one of your guys, like a Schoolboy? Or if you go after a Crockett, or if you go after a Jack Flaherty from Detroit, you have options where you can use your top prospects and talk to teams like, we need starting pitching. So you got those guys that you can use to get a valid arm back.
I think like the most valuable thing that they could possibly do if they're looking for starting pitching is get somebody under control. So right. If they can go after and get aggressive and go after Schoolboy, that would be perfect in my eyes. Obviously, that's reaching very high because I don't think that's something that they're ready to do yet. Maybe that's like an off-season type of deal, or like a guy like you mentioned him before, Garrett Crochet. But a lot of teams are going after these guys and looking into them. So it's such a Mets thing to like think of like the most journeyman like starting pitcher that you could possibly like. I saw Rich Hill is gaining interest in like a bunch of teams, and I'm like, what? So
I wanted Zach Eflin. I looked at his stats. I mean, he pitches 6 innings a night. I mean, every time he's out there. Like that was a guy that I was I was interested in the Mets kind of going out there as the, Tampa Bay Rays have been like trading off all their assets. But I'll say this, when it comes to prospects, I'm not a prospect hugger. I do like all the lists that, Michael Mayer puts out and Joe DeMayo, and they do the top 20 and all that stuff. To me, outside of a guy like Francisco Alvarez, who is the consensus #1 prospect in all of baseball, outside of guys like that and David Wright, who come up here and Jose Reyes, these guys to me are leverage to get major league pieces in here. Yeah. And like you said, Key, I'm trading my top prospects for control of, a major league asset. Like you mentioned, Skubal and these guys that have multiple years, left on their deals, not guys that are going to be free agents at the end of the year. That's desperation to me.
Yeah. I feel like, sorry to cut you off. I feel like the only way that you could possibly get a rental would be a Jesse Winkler type deal. Like, I wouldn't want a starter just for this season. If we were to add, it has to be, because a lot of these guys are on 1-year deals, proven deals already. And we don't know, like Severino is not going to cost the same, clearly. So you never know who's going to stay, who's going to go anyways. Or continue.
Yeah, no, those Sevy type deals, those Minaya type deals, you don't want to do that for your entire rotation, because that's why we are in the spot that we're in right now. Those are, like you said, journeymen, guys that belong closer to the end. Although Sevy has the talent, Sevy really does have the most talent to be an ace if he put everything together. He could be an ace of a staff. And he was like that for the Yankees for a better part of, the first half of the decade. And I just don't want to be doing that, because, look, the Mets are going to have to rebuild the rotation again when it comes to the offseason. And I know David mentioned not putting Jose Butto in the rotation, which I agree with. I don't want to mess with him back and forth, because I don't want to mess with his arm. But they really need to consider at the end of this year finally putting him in the rotation for good. I don't know why they sent him down to begin with. I don't know why they keep messing with him and keep regurgitating Tyler McGill in our faces. And same with David Peterson. But Jose Butto has the best stuff out of the three.
Yeah.
And he's the one that's been messed around with the most. And you look at him in the bullpen. I mean, I was there on Thursday when he pitched 3 innings of shutout baseball. And the most important note that came out of that is every time he comes into a game, he comes in with runners on base, and he has held 6 runners on base without giving up a run. That is probably one of the most important stats that this guy has going for him right now, because you look at all the other guys that they bring in, the Jake Diekmans, the Adam Ottavinos, the Drew Smiths in the past. They are not able to, get out of a clean inning and help their starting pitcher when the pitchers can't, go long. Jose Butto's been able to do that.
Yeah, I think when he pitched, what was it, on Thursday against the Yankees? And
he pitched the Braves game. He pitched on Thursday.
The Braves game where he held them shut out throughout his tenure. I think that he finally deserves his chance after what he's proven to us this season. And it's not a situation where you have the luxury of just stashing him in the bullpen and just keeping him there because of all the, what we mentioned before, the guys on 1-year deals. I wanted to mention this completely aside from him. I think that they should bring up Lucchesi just as a lefty, because I understand that Diekman did the unthinkable this past week, but I'm so done with him. I'm done with him.
He bought himself 1 extra outing, and then he just
he gave up a home run anyway.
They got a plaque for that brother because he struck out Aaron
Judge.
It was
amazing. You know, like I'm not gonna complain about it. It was a very memorable moment this Mets season, which has a fucking a lot.
You're right.
But I think they should bring up Lucchese just to see what it would look like. Him as a lefty coming out of their pen. I think that a guy that can also give you length. You know, if there is a blowout, we don't have to use everybody. Use 4 arms, like we've done in past games. So I think just to wrap that up, I think that they should. I agree. They should have Budo as one of the penciled in starters coming into next season.
Right.
Absolutely.
And you're also thinking about, you got guys on pitching limits as well. You got Severino on the pitching limit. You got Sean Manaea on the pitching limit. So while you have those guys on pitching limits, your key, if you're gonna put Jose Budo in that rotation, you're not only are you looking at him as how long can you go, but you're also crossing on your fingers that David Peterson doesn't have an outing that he had tonight. Yeah. You're hoping that what we've seen for David Peterson before today continues, because him going 6-7, even though he gives up a lot of hits, him being able to keep the Mets in games with the lead and going at least 7 every start can help them tremendously, because they don't always have to go to their bullpen so early. So, those stuff like that happens. And if they do bring up a Lucchese, hopefully it's the same thing with Lucchese where, he could actually give you 6 innings and solid 6 innings, so where you don't really have to use the bullpen that much. So a lot of that plays out as well.
Our issue I find most with our staff is that they cannot control the meltdown.
Right. I agree.
And that's across the board, right? Like if you look at Manaea, definitely with the walks, they'll start an inning with 2 walks and then a double in the gap, a single, a home run, maybe another walk. It'll continue, So like we've seen it throughout the entire rotation. It's not just McGill, Peterson, Manaea, Sevy's also guilty of this, but Sevy also recovers in a way that, he'll still give you a couple more innings, or he'll still, save you. But I think to your point, they need to get creative. Now is the time to get creative. I think that them adding more pieces into the bullpen, the fact that David Stearns is very quick to make a decision on who's not working and who is, even though for some reason Adam Ottavino and Jake Diekman are still in the bullpen, but he finds ways to make quick decisions. So I'm thankful for that.
Well, a huge decision is going to come down on these guys, because you look at the lefties in the bullpen. Right now we got 3, right? Alex and Danny Young, along with Jake Diekman. You got Adam Ottavino, Phil Maton, Stanek, Diaz. You got Sean Reed Foley getting ready to come back. You got Reed Garrett getting ready to come back. So they're on borrowed time right now. Both Jake Diekman and Adam Ottavino. Like I can't justify carrying them when these 2 guys that are coming back are better. Like what you can't just get rid of Ryan Stanek and Phil Maton. Like they've been not Ryan Stanek today, but Phil Maton has pitched well since coming here. Yeah. Like I'm not gonna mess with that. Like I'm sorry, Adam Ottavino. I know you got tenure and stuff like that, but you're just not cutting it right now. And I said at the trade deadline, even if they didn't make a big move, the biggest moves to me that happened at the trade deadline is getting DJ Stewart, Adam Ottavino, and Jake Diekman off this roster. We got one.
They got one. I was ready to wake up early and pack his bags for him. As soon as I woke up, matter of fact, I got woken up because my uncle was tapping me on the shoulder, like, "Wake up, he's out of here." I was ready to pack his bags. He's not fully out of here, but I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for it.
Everybody thought it was going to be Ben Gamel, and I was like, I think DJ Stewart has the option. I think they'll keep Gamel for an extra game or 2 here.
Gamel's been all right too. Like I'm not going to complain too much about what Gamel's been giving, because I thought it would be worse than this. So
yeah. Shea Parking Lot agrees with us about Scooble bringing him here. He'll trade his offspring for Scooble. Maybe we should present that to David Stearns and see if we can make any moves there for them. But Chris Torres up in here. He says we need starting pitchers with control. We have nothing for the next year in the rotation. And, he's completely right. Key, you mentioned it. We need to start getting younger, and we need to start getting guys that are more controllable here, because like you said before, we're not going to be able to get Luis Severino for the same price when it comes in the offseason.
No.
He's going to get a 3-year, 4-year deal, probably 60, 80 million.
Yeah.
Right now, you look at Sean Manaea. He's got the opt-out, I think. He's got the player opt-out that he can go into free agency. I don't know if he'll take it, but he's had a good enough season, too, if he wanted to. You look at, Christian Scott's the only one under control. And obviously, Kodai Senga, he's not going to reach his innings limit, so we'll have him for an extra year or two. So the Mets got to decide, man. Jose Budo, to me, is the guy that gets into this rotation to go along with Senga. And I guess if Christian Scott is able, but, even Christian Scott has not been able to go 5 innings. I mean, this is a problem. Like, these guys can get through that. Like, if you look at the last 2 games, Tyler McGill was lights out for the first 3 innings. David Peterson, lights out for the first 3 innings. And then they crumble. They Steven Matz the game.
Yeah, it's also a nature of, like, second time around the batting order, can't figure it out. It's just it usually starts with the bottom of the order too, all the time.
Right.
I feel like, and yeah, man, like, they have to start finding length somewhere, right? So, yes, has Jose Budo been lights out of the pen? Of course, and I would love to keep him there. But in an ideal situation, which we're not in, you could, right? So now you have to move him possibly into a rotational role. You just got to hope that when guys like you mentioned before, and like Reed Garrett, when he comes back, like these guys coming back to IL, plus Stanek, hopefully he turns it around from the last we saw him. So yeah, man, like, yeah, you have to eventually. I think they'll adapt and they will make that change, but it's not looking good right now. Christian Scott, those starts were worrying me, man.
They were getting worse.
They were getting worse
progressively,
and I kept calling for Alvarez to be paired with him for that reason, because it felt like a snowball effect. Each start was bleeding into the next one. With him, you could see the promise, with a lot of the ways that he starts the game. But another guy, he is a rookie, so you got to give him the benefit of the doubt. But like, meltdown inning, can you recover? Can you get that third out? Second out, runners in scoring position, getting that last out. We didn't see it today. We didn't see it yesterday. So that's one thing that I wish, if we had a pitching coach that was worth the damn, would help us with. But you know what? We don't. And the pitching coach is a 22, 23-year-old catcher.
Bro, don't even get me started on Jeremy Hefner, man. I can't anymore. I mean, every time I got something to say about Jeremy Hefner, someone comes at me with, but look at the team's ERA. Look at this guy. He's Teflon on this team for some reason.
Big time.
And
big time.
I'm always looking up at the scoreboard when I'm at Citi Field, because there's that one, not stat, but when you're looking at the hits run, there's that one where it's mound visits.
Yeah.
And we always, at the end of the game, have a full amount of mound visits there. Like, why can't this guy come out just to calm the pitchers down? He never comes out there, and it's always has to be Francisco Alvarez doing all the work. Like, I don't know what it is about this guy. There's been no progression with Tyler McGill or David Peterson. We didn't see any work out of Christian Scott with him. And like Chris Torres says, it's like he has a bulletproof vest on. I mean, like, I just don't get it. He has lasted all the way from Luis Rojas. How is that possible that he's been through 3 managers already? I just don't get it.
It doesn't make any sense. And then, a key issue that I have with him is that I don't feel like there is a plan. I don't feel like there is a plan, because if I did feel like there is a plan, we would be starting games off on the right foot, and I feel like we're falling behind, a lot more often than not. And I feel like Alvarez has to recover for that. And credit to Alvarez. Right now, he's not hitting, and it's not really affecting too much
the
of
team.
The team right now. But if he's not hitting, that could bleed over into his catching as well. So yeah, man, like I don't know, like it doesn't feel well when you're watching somebody out there trying to labor getting their second out, and your pitching coach is just at the top step with the manager, just like looking at him,
Yeah.
like
You know,
looking at Alvarez and telling him talk. But you're the pitching coach. You're the guy that these guys go to for, strategical game planning. Like, how do we counter this? Like I saw today, we got off on David Peterson threw two straight fastballs right down the pipe to Ozuna, right? And this was before he hit the single that led to the home run. It was two pitches back to back, four seam fastballs right down the middle. He mistakenly he kept hitting his head or whatever because he was angry that he just left those pitches right there. Then he gets another pitch right in on the hands. He bounces it for a single. Olsen comes up and hits a bomb. So it's like, right there after the Ozuna base hit, I would think that my pitching coach would go up to calm a guy down. But nothing.
Against a guy that has solid numbers.
One of the best in baseball. He bat awful guy. We know that. One of the best hitters in baseball. You know what I'm saying? I hate to say it, but it's the truth, right? And then Olsen, a guy who's getting his bat hot right now. So
every time he faces David Peterson, he seems to go yard against David Peterson. So my thing is, that he just gave up a hit to Ozuna. You want to go out there, make sure that he's fine or, whatever, because that with stat wise, the guy that kills him the most is coming up next. And what happens after that? So it's like, and then there'll be times where whether you're watching it, I mean, most of the time when I'm at the game, I watch Francisco Alvarez sometimes when they have trouble on the base runners, he turns to the dugout to maybe see if Hefner is going to come out to talk to him. And then you kind of see Francisco Alvarez get up and go to the mound. And to me, it's like, yo, why is it that this kid, and I love Francisco Alvarez, but why is it that he, and as much as I love him taking the initiative to do it, he doesn't have to do the initiative to go out there and talk to his pitcher every single time. There's a pitching coach for a reason. So when I see him do that, and then it's like in his head, he's probably like, all right, you know what? Because this fucking pitching coach doesn't want to get his ass up and come out, let me go and see if I can calm it down. But he doesn't always have to do that. That's my issue with Hefner. It's like, dude, you seem like you seem like you're just putting your job on Francisco Alvarez, who again doesn't necessarily every inning he doesn't have to do it. Neither does Francisco Lindor, because Lindor does it sometimes too. And it's just like, okay,
like the tank works more than Hefner.
Yeah, I have been complaining about Hefner for years.
Yep,
for years, I've been complaining about this. Yeah. And I think the final straw for me was Christian Scott's debut. I mean, he got off in the first inning, and I think he loaded the bases.
He did.
Hefner didn't even show up. It was like trial and error. Like, you're going to live by the sword, die by the sword, and that's it. And I'll tell you this. I know he had nothing to do with that 2022 season because those pitchers were off on their own, helping out Taijuan Walker, helping out Carlos Carrasco, all of them sitting down, looking at stats, looking at the iPad. You had Bassett there. You had DeGrom.
They were always communicating with each other.
Yeah, always communicating.
Yeah, always. And then Alvarez helped out with a lot of their starts, and they wanted his feedback with a lot of what they were seeing as well. So that it was a good culture, but it was, like you said, amongst the pitchers. It wasn't including the pitching staff as well,
Yeah, and I only can differentiate him from the young guys like the Budos, McGill, Peterson. I mean, today, like you mentioned, David Peterson has a terrible stat line against Matt Olson. This guy did not come out to talk to him and say, hey, like maybe this is a way we should work around this at bat. Around Olsen, even if it ended up being a walk to load the bases or something like that.
I thought he was going to walk him.
That's what I thought.
I would have taken the bases loaded. I would have been fine with that had you walk him, and then also go out and talk, buy some time for the next guy, and that just was non-existent.
It doesn't help that Gary Cohen is a fucking jinx master and wants to repeat his stat against Matt Olson 56,000 times.
Oh yeah,
But when he's repeating it, and then I'm like, okay, you just gave up that hit to Ozuna. I was screaming at my TV. I was like, yo, where's Hefner? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, it's obvious. Any pitching coach would have came out right now and said, all right, I just want to make sure you're good because, you know, this guy gives you problems. So I just want to make sure that you know what your game plan is here and what you're going to do next. Nothing. And then guess what? Throws a nice breaking pitch over the plate. And Olsen said, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, they've made it seem like for so long that this guy has some type of plan. Like when they, instituted all of the analytics and stuff. Oh, this is the Jeremy Hefner plan. We've got the pitching lab, and it's going to suit Hefner and his idea. What's so great about what he has done in this time that he's been pitching coach for the Mets? Because, I haven't seen a lot of it. And we talked about 2022, their best season. Those were a lot of veterans that did not need his help whatsoever. So, I am not, married to the fact that this guy needs to get out of here at some point at the end of the season. If this team does not make it to the playoffs, I mean, we should be at a point in this season now, in, the end of July, early August, we're on a consistent basis, at least somewhat semi-consistent, like a Zach Eflin, where Luis Severino gives us 4 or 5 starts in a row where he's pitching 6 to 7 innings. Same thing with Sean Manaea. Same thing with Jose Quintana. And we're just not getting it. It's just so inconsistent. And then we got to bring in Jose Budo for 3 innings, and he's knocked out for about half a week because he's already pitched 3 innings of a game.
Right. Yeah, and it all compounds, like onto each and every series. So you look at, right, like we didn't want to use Edwin in the Marlins series. We had to use him. We didn't want to use Budo in the Marlins series. We had to use him, right? Then coming into that game on Wednesday, we had to look for Adam Ottavino and and Jake Diekman to get us out against, yes, horrible Yankees lineup at the time. But when you're facing Soto and Judge, I think can have that. Plus Grisham, Noda Mekiller. So I think, it all compounds. So you gotta, I think they have to find some sort of middle ground with the pitching staff. You're gonna give me 5 innings, that's cool. But then they got to get some options out of the pen. They have to almost fall on either sword at this point. They have to rely on something. And I think it's going to end up being the bullpen because we haven't seen this starting staff progress. It's been sort of the same thing for about a month now. And we've been winning in spite of that because of the lineup. But now the lineup's not hitting. So we have to find some sort of identity, and I don't think we have it yet.
Yeah. And like Shea Parking Lot mentioned earlier, and like Chris Torres mentioned earlier as well, obviously we're going to try to get 1 starting pitcher, but the Mets really do need 2.
Yeah.
I mean, without Senga, the Mets need 2 starters. They're not going to get them, but to at least get 1 guy. I don't know who they're going to get. And we're going to get into the trade deadline, shortly. But man, having these guys go 4 or 5 innings, like Shea Parking Lot says, it's unacceptable. I mean, you got to at least go 6. And even when they do go 6, you got to get 9 outs from the bullpen. When you don't have an elite Edwin Diaz, which he just has not been elite this season, you really are looking for 9 outs. And the only person that's been elite, 2, has been Daniel Nunez and Jose Budo. And Daniel Nunez is now out. I mean, everything that the Mets have worked so hard for to get to this point, to get to be buyers at the trade deadline, and only a few days away, you lose one of your best relievers, and you lose your ace of the staff. Yeah. And you compound that with the team now kind of going in an offensive funk, especially losing to the Braves the last couple of games. And it's just, I don't want this team to panic going into Tuesday just because this happened. I think, and I don't think David Stearns will. I think he'll make the right decision, like bringing in Jesse Winker, like bringing in Phil Maton and Ryan Stanek. So, we'll see where it goes moving forward. But let's get into the trade deadline here. And obviously the Mets have work here to do. I mentioned already, they brought in Ryan Stanek. They brought in Jesse Winker. I think the Ryan Stanek trade was cash considerations, right?
Yeah.
Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I know they did it when I was going out to the game, so I kind of missed the whole trade. But, David Stearns using his masterclass in all the trades that he's made. Even you talk about like a Cole Sussler trade where he just got money back, goes into trades like this in bringing in guys like Ryan Stanek and Phil Maton. So obviously he did not have a good start to the game on Sunday. Immediately gave up a home run, and then gave up a 2-run shot to Austin Riley. And rough first go for him. But I'm not going to give up on him just yet. He still has a way to go here, and I think eventually get those jitters out, and he'll be fine. He's got the back of the baseball card, if you'll say, that he is a reliever in this league. And as we know, relievers are, Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
So you never know what you're going to get from these guys.
I call them lottery tickets.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, no, I like this move because I wanted him in the offseason. Same with Phil Maton. Those are two guys I thought that the Mets could easily get, and it just fell by the wayside. But now we have them. So, he hasn't shown it yet, but I think that Ryan Stanek has some pretty elite stuff when he's going well, and that's pretty promising because it looks so far so well with Phil Maton right now. I know that it's a low bar based off of the bullpen that we've been seeing, but if a guy can just come in and just have a clean inning, for more times often than not like a Adam Ottavino where when he has a clean inning, it's usually during a blowout, and when we need him, he just implodes. So I like that move. Jesse Winker, I've been swearing up and down to anybody that would hear it that this was the guy that I wanted as a bat. You look at his numbers, he's hitting over 800 OPS. He's hitting around, like 260, I believe. But we saw it this year. He won a game for the Nationals against us. I remember around July 4th, that series.
On July 4th.
In Washington.
Yeah,
in
Washington. So I wanted him. I've always thought that he would eventually be a Met. I thought that he was going to be a Met this season. He would be one of the guys that we would give a deal to, like a Bader, but to him. So yeah, man, I'm excited, but the way that this offense looks, they have yet to, I guess, come around at the same time. And I think that they almost did around that, like early July sort of deal, but then Pete kind of drifted off, and it was normally like JD getting it done, Nimmo getting it done, Lindor getting it done, but then it became like Iglesias and Torrens and a whole bunch of guys like Vientos and stuff. So that's the good thing about this team. I feel like this offense is real, and up and down, you have a very deep lineup when you had Jesse Winker in it. So mixing him with McNeil getting hot right now. Iglesias, I know he's drifted off a little bit, but he's another option. Alvarez is eventually going to come around. We all know that. Vientos is hitting right now. JD is going to come around. Hopefully Pete does, join the party. Right now it's just Lindor and Vibe.
He did hit a home run.
He did. He did, but it's, I don't know, man. It's looking bad for that man. But I know what Pete Alonso is at his best, and he has yet to give me that. So if you think about the offense like that in that nature, Pete Alonso could give you a string of games that he could win by himself because of his bat. And if we can get that with the rest of the lineup sort of coming around and coming together as a unit, it's a very, very scary lineup. But then think about the pitching. If we can hold it down for just 5-6 innings, I'm just asking for like 6 innings out of the rotation, then I think we'll be in good standing.
Yeah. Look, the Mets are even missing Harrison Bader, who's an important part of this, offensive lineup and comes up with clutch hits. I pretty much think that Starling Marte's time is done. Like I don't feel like he's coming. The Mets don't make this trade for Jesse Winker if Starling Marte is somewhat close to coming back. I think his season might be over. That's just my personal opinion, and I wouldn't be shocked that if his Met tenure might be almost over as well. Shout out to Anthony and Armand because they corrected me. I forgot we traded Rylan Thomas to get Stanek over here, but shout out to you guys
No,
for
it was Cole. It was Cole Sosa that they traded
for cash considerations. Yeah.
considerations then.
So
Okay.
shout out to you guys for doing that and getting me back online there. But look, when it comes to Jesse Winker, and David, you could attest to this, Key, you as well. I mean, I just wanted him on this team just so he'd stop killing us, man. Every freaking game, the dude is a killer for the Mets. And to get him in this lineup, I know people were talking about Michael Conforto, who, Top Bunk, you're in that chat. I wanted no piece of Michael Conforto.
I was this close to just leaving the chat at this point when I saw that. Yeah,
I'm sorry. I know the whole reunion and stuff that everybody wanted. And obviously, if he would have came, I would have supported him. All good, all that stuff. He's better than DJ Stewart. Fine, because that's all I wanted. But I think Jesse Winker is a better option right now for what this team needs. They don't need a guy like Conforto who's probably going to want starts. Jesse Winker, you could plug him in. He could come off the bench. It just wasn't going to work. Like the returns never work out. And the only return that I would take from San Francisco was probably going to be a Wilmer Flores. Like, I've been a Wilmer Flores guy for a while, but, I know that wasn't going to happen. And we needed a lefty. And, Michael Conforto just wasn't going to get it done for me. So I was totally on board with getting Jesse Winker here.
Yeah, I think just getting Jesse Winker, I'm not a fan of, he's not a fan favorite for me, but number one, I think he does the obvious. He gets DJ Stewart off the field, but he's also a lefty that you can rely on in certain times. He's been very clutch for Seattle. He was very, very good for Cincinnati, and for the Nationals, he was very good with them this season before obviously he got traded. So the guy could definitely hit. Another thing that I think people forget is that he could steal bases. So this is a guy that, you could put him in the, 5, 6, 7 hole, maybe in 3 hole. If JD Martinez is not, playing, you put him as a DH and he could get on base and, he could steal bags if he needs to. He's okay defensively in the field, but that fixes itself up. He's, like I said, he's a way better fielder on the outfield than DJ Stewart. So that, to me, that's a win. A lot of people had issue with it, and I was like, this is a way better pickup than Michael Conforto, way better pickup than DJ Stewart. How could you not be happy with it? Put personal feelings aside, he basically takes the cake. So I was happy on that. Ryan Stanek has a really good fastball. Got a really nice slider. I've seen it with a couple, and I have League Pass, so I watched a couple Seattle Mariner games, and I've seen some of his reliever sessions, and he's very good. Was very surprised that we picked him up in a trade because he was in conversations during the offseason, when the Mets were looking at him. So I'm very happy that he's here. Obviously, he got booed today, but that, fans are gonna be fans. He's gonna let him develop, let him get within the team, and he's gonna be able to get back into his momentum, his strengths. But overall, I kind of like what they did here. They kind of addressed the needs that they needed to address. There's more time to address some of the more needs that need to be addressed. And that's kind of what I like. The fact that, they started off addressing a little bit and they still got more time going into Tuesday to actually, get some more pieces. But, I think they started off solid. And yeah, I think there's ways to go. But I agree with what Key said. Within the offense, your key guys within Alonso, especially Alonso, who it's his walk here, and you're performing the way you are. The guy's getting killed with sliders. I said it to his brother. The book is open on the brother at this point. You throw him a slider, he's going to chase. JD Martinez right now is a guessing matchup at this point. Every pitch that he got, he's guessing. He's half swinging, and it's like, I get that he's a veteran, and you kind of you eliminate those as you go. But for somebody who at every at bat is guessing, you kind of wonder, like, is this a momentum that's gonna keep going? You know what I mean? So it's those are little things that you kind of freaks you out a little bit, because that those guys are not what they're showing right now, especially with Pete.
You gotta kind of have like some trust too,
right?
Right. Jeff McNeil coming out of the break, playing the way that he has, right? Like nobody kind of foresaw that coming. We kind of thought that he was just cooked, and now he's been one of the best players in the second half for us. Possibly like our only source of consistent offense besides Lindor getting it done. So yeah, like some of the guys you got to kind of have that trust with. Like JD, I kind of expect him to come around at some point and get on a streak. But a guy like, like if Jeff McNeil has a week where he's just coming back down to earth, does he get back on that streak? Does that happen again? Does he, psych himself out? It's a lot of volatility with the lineup that sort of bothers me, but it also makes for like when they get hot and when they do perform, it's crazy to watch. Also, like they're hitting bombs, they're having fun. So when it's hot, it's amazing to watch. But yeah, to your point, they get very, very in their own heads, I think.
Yeah.
No hitting coach either on this side of the ball as well.
No hitting coach to trust. No hitting coach to trust, because you got two guys that are lost at their peak right now, and it's like, yo, who do I go to? I mean, nobody was ever a fan of Jeremy Barnes, and Eric Chavez kind of had his respect up until last year. So it's like, yo, where do we go? Like, who do we trust? And at that point, if you're a hitter, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna trust what I know I can be successful at. I can't trust in these two guys to give me pointers. So I gotta learn within myself, because these two guys, man, we spoke about it, and the offense from 2022 up to now has drastically dropped.
Yeah,
literally, like these guys you didn't even expect the home run. Every time a guy came up, it was on to the next guy. Base hit, on to the next guy. Let's score like that. Small ball. It wasn't always about home runs. Now it's just like these guys, if it's not home run, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like
it's such a streaky offense that we have right now. Yeah. And you look at one of the biggest culprits of that is Brandon Nimmo at this moment in time. I mean, right out of the All-Star break, he is struggling bad, really bad. I know he'll get out of it and he'll probably have a good August, or, good August into September. The only real consistent bat that the Mets have had right now has been Francisco Lindor. Outside of that, first month of the season, he has been like, he was batting .089 at the end of April. To get your batting average all the way back up to 259, that's a feat in itself, man. That really is. And I look at JD Martinez, and I, like you, Key, I have 100% faith in this guy turning it around and getting him back himself. I mean, you look at Friday night, didn't he go like 3 for 4, 4 for 4 with that grand slam? I mean, that's what we see from a guy like him. My concern right now is with Pete. Pete is my biggest concern, because he's obviously still has not learned to lay off the sliders in the dirt. I mean, that's going to be a problem that plagues him his whole career. But I just don't know what this Pete Alonso is right now. I mean, we know what Pete is at his best. You mentioned it earlier. And right now, that's not what we're getting. That's not, I mean, he's going to have his 2-hit games. He'll have a couple, but like in these big spots, we're seeing him not only strike out on that slider away, but stuff right down the plate, he's just whiffing on. He's not getting any of this stuff. So, look, I look at Pete, and I hope that he can. I'm still holding out hope that at some point he's carrying this offense. And we're just waiting and waiting. We've seen Lindor carry it. We've seen JD Martinez carry it. We've even seen Brandon Nimmo carry the offense. Sometimes Mark Vientos has to do it. and Francisco Alvarez to a certain extent. So, look, I'm hoping that this lineup turns around. I don't see another, I think Jesse Winker is the bat. That's it. They're done with that. The focus now has to be on what this team needs, and what this team needs: a starting pitcher, number one, and some relief pitching for sure. I want to shout out. We had 100 people in this room right now. Shout out to all you guys that are in here with me, with Key, with my guy Top Bunk. And you can follow Key at Key_Bully19, as well as at Shea and Sons Podcast, and my guy Top Bunk at Top Bunk Sports, and me at Subway to Shea. I want to get into some of these comments here. Talking about trade deadline, Maureen mentioned earlier, and I saved it, trading Beatty. He's shown that he can't play in New York. Do you think it's time to trade Brett Beatty, especially with the way he's playing down in AAA? I mean, this is the highest this year that his stock is going to get.
Yeah, I think you make that decision in a heartbeat because of not only what he's been able to show in the comparison of AAA, and then when he gets up here, because when he's on AAA, it's like he's Ken Griffey Jr. 2.0. But then when he's up here, he's ice cold as a motherfucker. And then you have Mark Vientos, who everybody doubted from the start. He's showing on both sides of the ball that he, his defense is getting better, and he can hit the hell out of the ball. So, why not stick with a guy like that who is showing that he can do it on both sides, when you also have somebody that, yeah, he's hot in AAA, but then when it really matters up here, he's ice cold. You know what I'm saying? So if you can use him and, kind of show teams like, listen, maybe a new scenery in the majors could possibly switch it up for him. Maybe that's something you need to do for the brother, because if Viento keeps playing like the way he's playing, I don't see an opportunity for him at all.
Yeah, I think the best thing you can do for Beatty is keep him in the minor leagues. And I think that is also the best way to maintain his value, because if you bring him back up and he does in the little time that he's possibly going to play, because Vientos is playing so well, and they just traded for a lefty bat that they're going to intend on using, according to Mendoza, a lot to give guys days off and stuff. I don't see a way that Beatty stays on this team. I just don't know if they'll pull the trigger this deadline or wait until the offseason.
G Money Stack says the question is, which team would want Brett Beatty? Obviously,
the Rays. The Rays. I saw something about the Rays, right?
The Rays,
I have not seen anything on the Brett Beatty front, but I will say this: if David Stearns can somehow take the production that Brett Beatty has done in AAA and package that in a deal to get a controllable starter, I mean, he has then done God's work. I mean, to get, some controllable starter for Brett Beatty, I think, and obviously he won't be the only part of the deal. There'll probably be another prospect or something.
Yeah.
But to just get him to a point where his stock is good enough to get us a controllable starter, I would totally take that. Let me see what else we have here from the group here. Tank is asking, what do you think of Tyler Anderson? Consistently goes 6 or 7 innings. He has 11 quality starts this year. That's the type of pitcher we need, right? Yeah. We need somebody that's going to give us length every time out.
Yeah, no, Tyler Anderson will be the exact guy that you will want to eat up innings and, move on to the next start without, I think the good thing about Tyler Anderson is that he never lets the previous start bleed into the next one if he does have a bad one. And he's able to come in and provide you a lot of length in a way that we're not seeing right now.
Right. Another guy that I was looking into, David, let me know what you think about this, and Key, you can as well. What about Jameson Taillon in Chicago? I mean, that's a guy that's pitched well in New York, especially with the Yankees, and he does pitch a lot of innings, and it's not like my top choice, but that's just a name that I would think to consider. I honestly don't know what the Cubs are doing right now, because they just bought in with Paredes. So yeah. I have no idea what they're doing. Maybe Craig Counsell is like, you better not sell. So I just don't know what's happening with the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, they're looking at their standings like, wait a minute, we're only 6 games back from the wild card, 10 games back from the division. Hold up, wait, we still got a chance here, even though they know they don't. But no, I think Jameson Tyone, I mean, he's an innings eater. Is how I look at it. And like you said, I think the benefit of that is that he's pitched here, so he kind of knows how, he kind of knows how to really control that. And like I just saw, Mendoza likes him. I mean, Mendoza was on the Yankees when he was there, so there's a lot of benefits to that. I just think the guy tends to, when he gets into trouble, he has certain starts where he doesn't know how to control it. He doesn't know how to get out of it, and he gives up the long ball a lot. And that, I think that hurts us when our starters give up the long ball. They seem to not come back from it a lot of the times. So you're adding that issue that you already have in your rotation to the rotation that we already have now. But the benefits, like I said, is that he knows how to deal with the pressure in New York, and he's an innings eater, and we know we need that a lot from our starters. So if that's the choice that they go for, it's a cheap choice. It's the same thing with the Jack Flaherty from Detroit. If they look at Jack Flaherty, who again is not my favorite choice, but he seems to found his groove in Detroit. I think they fixed a lot of his mechanical issues. His spin rate is going up since he's been with Detroit. So it's not my cup of tea, but those two guys are inning eaters. So if that's what they're looking at and they're cheap, I could see why they would do that.
Key, I saw you made a face when I said Jameson Tyone. So tell me what your thoughts are on him.
Oh man, Jameson Tyone. I just feel like that's a guy. Yes, he did pitch well in his time with the Yankees. It was limited. I don't know. I look at him as a guy that I don't really trust more times than not.
Right.
So if I'm looking at his track record, before, he has a checkered past, but he is pitching well enough this season that I think that he fits a need. So I think right now beggars can't be choosers, right? So we look at who's available and assess from there. We know that we need guys that can get into the 6th and 7th innings. So that's what we're going to target. It doesn't really matter at the point, at this point. All bets are off. So I would be open to it, but almost like cautiously, I guess.
I mean, he pitched well against us.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he pitched one of his best games of the year against us, so we couldn't touch that guy that game. So it was a head scratcher, but he pitched well against us. So
all these guys we look to trade for always like throw a gem against us. Freaking Spencer Schwagenbacher or whatever his
that
name
was the last guy I expected. I didn't. Hell no. And I'm telling you, when I walked into that ballpark and I saw his ERA, his record, I said, "Oh, we should get this guy." I was so wrong.
11 strikeouts. I was like, "Oh, is this Greg Maddux? Like, did Greg Maddux return? Like, because that's what it felt like."
His fastball was touching high too. He was touching 96, 97. They couldn't touch his fastball at all.
I literally turned for like 2 seconds and the Mets were already out of an inning. Like, that's how fast he was getting through the inning. He was getting through it fast so quick. Yep. It's like, I don't even have to go to the bathroom now. I could just wait. This game's like flying by.
During the first inning, I remember during the first inning, I was at the gym, and then by like the 4th inning, they couldn't get nobody on base. It was insane to watch because it just felt like everybody was chasing pitches outside of the zone. And I know that he came into that game with a high chase percentage and strikeouts per inning rate, but that was kind of unbelievable to watch him like just quickly get through as a rookie. It was pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie.
I hope McGill took notes because I mean, like, walking the batter and nibbling around the plate is not gonna get. And I don't care if this guy got 8 pitches. That's all I hear. He's got 8 pitches. Like, he's got so many pitches. Well, he can't even master 1 pitch. How are we gonna go with 8?
Oh my god!
Like, come on, man. Dave, you mentioned Jack Flaherty, and Chris Torres brings up Fetty and or Flaherty is probably what Stearns is gonna do, which I could probably agree with. I know we talked about it in the space too. That I can't remember the space from last night. I know mentioned about Jack Flaherty being a possible option that the Mets get into. Which would you guys prefer? And I know in the off season, me, Key, and Keith, We had a little discussion about Fetty Wap, and I can't believe we've come to this point. I honestly can't.
Full circle moment, and full circle
Well,
moment.
shout out to you, Key, because you're actually the one when you guys did your trade target piece. You brought up the fact that he actually struggles against the National League. That he's doing well against the American League, but he struggles against the National League. So
yeah, we've seen him. We've seen him in this division. Obviously, the Nationals are not a good team. Well, they haven't been a good team for a while now since their World Series run. So when we did see him, he wasn't really necessarily pitching well until he went to KBO and he found something new and he brought it back to the States and he's pitching about as well as he's ever pitched. So I remember that fateful night. Me and Keith we were on live.
We were finishing the show.
Yeah, we were.
Show is done.
Yeah, you're right. We were finishing the show. The show was about to be done, and then you read that off, and
40 minutes.
Yeah, we added 40 minutes. That's how disgusted we were with us and Eric Fetty. And then it turned out that we had gotten outbid by Chicago, and I think it was because we didn't promise him a starting role. Was that the case?
I think so. I think so. He wasn't going to be a starter, and now we are begging Fetty to be the ace of this staff.
Full
what's happening?
Full circle,
guys.
That's crazy.
Unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. Armand says, I think the Mets land Michael Lorenzen from the Rangers. What are you guys' thoughts on Lorenzen?
Oh my God, these names. Michael Lorenzen. I know that I said it before. You know what? Nothing is off the table, right? We need length, and that's what we need to focus on, getting guys into the 6th and 7th innings. We can't go off of name value, but Michael Lorenzen, I think of Michael Lorenzen, I think of bad thoughts. So I can't.
Hey, are you paying attention to the way his face as he's talking about it? He looks like he wants to punch the wall because he's like, "Yo, come on, bro." Michael Lorenzen
names, man, like Eric Fetty, Michael Lorenzen, we're at a point where we need some sort of consistency, and some of these guys bring that. So while some of these names are kind of oh, come on, that guy. It's more so hey man, he'll fit a role.
Yeah,
quickly.
Again, Met fans have to also be prepared that we're probably not gonna get a School Bowl. Now, if David Stearns wakes up and be like, you know what, I'm a savage today. Yo, take these 4 prospects, Detroit, and give a School Bowl. If that happens, I swear to God, I'm running laps around my house because I'm not even expecting that. But Met fans gotta be prepared that if he doesn't land a School Bowl, he could land one of these 3 guys, including, like I said, a Jack Flaherty, where, like I said, Jack Flaherty right now, the best thing going for him is that he's pitching well in Detroit. His mechanics are better. Like I said, his spin rate is much better than what it was last year when he was with Baltimore. He's found something in Detroit to where that could be something with, they could use that for his trade as a trade asset. And the Mets could use that. And like I said, just like Jameson Taillon, just like Michael Lorenzen, just like Eric Fetty himself, these guys are inning eaters. And that's what you need the most within this rotation because we don't have guys that go 6-7 consistently. So, if in case they don't get a School Bowl, they don't get this guy from Washington, I don't want to mess up his name again, from the White Sox, I don't want to mess up his name again. You might look at guys like that who, they don't have the best strikeout stuff. They don't throw high velocity, but they do have, solid movement on their pitches, and they will eat you some innings and help your bullpen a little bit.
Lorenzen definitely gives me a little bit of this Sean Manaea vibes, right? You get 1 run, 4 runs, 2 runs, 5 runs, 5, 2, 3, 1. I mean, but for the most part, he'll have 1 game where he'll give up 6 runs, but he pretty much gives you a quality start. Right now, he's 5-6 with a 3.81 ERA. So, look, I mean, like we said, nothing is off the table. And, when I look at these starting pitchers or when I look at trade targets and the fact that we have to give up prospects, I look at the history that the Mets have had trading their prospects. How many trades can you think of where, the Mets have traded these prospects and they have blossomed into some kind of star or superstar. Not that many that I know of. I mean, everyone, complained about the Jared Kelnick for Diaz trade. A lot of people complained about the Marcus Stroman trade. And, a lot of the times that the Mets make these trades, they don't, work out for the Mets. But I have not seen these prospects take off. I mean, the only time that I've really seen a big, kind of prospect take off was, and I'm going back to like the late 90s, 2000s when the Mets traded Jason Isringhausen for Billy Taylor, and Jason Isringhausen became a top line closer. And that's like one of the only ones. I mean, if anyone else remembers them, I don't remember them off the top of my head, but how many times have the Mets traded their prospects and they've become some type of superstar? I don't see many.
The only one that I could possibly think of would be like Carlos Gomez. But think about it, like Johan was amazing for us.
Yeah,
at least in the beginning, we knew what he was. He eventually fell apart. The innings caught up to him, but I think that would be like the closest thing to like a really, because Carlos Gomez was an all-star. So I think that would be the only one. Unless somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but that's like a notable one, I think. But Pete Crow Armstrong is another one.
I was gonna bring that up.
That hasn't really worked out. I know that he's great with the glove, but he doesn't really provide much when he's batting. So, I think that's a good point.
If it wasn't for the terrible second half of the season that the Mets had and losing DeGrom, that trade would have went down as one of the best ones that we made. I mean, look at what forget about what Javi Baez is now. That 2-month span that we had of Javi Baez was one of the best. Like that could have gone in line with what the production that we got from Yoenis Cespedes when we traded Cespedes. I mean, that's how good Javi Baez was, and he switched positions.
And he hasn't been good since.
He has no. And the funny thing is that I mean, I was at the game, the first game that they brought back the black jerseys in 2021 was the day that they actually made the trade for Javier Baez, and I was at that game. We lost to Cincinnati, but when they put the trade up, everybody gave that brother I've never heard a standing ovation as loud as they gave him that standing ovation. I was they gave him a pretty loud ovation, and obviously when then he came the next day, we were down 4-3. We're down 4-2. He hits his home run in his debut. Like regardless of what you want to say about Javier Baez and what he did here, he was respected here. He brought some type of validity and some type of edge to the team.
And swagger
as well.
I'll never forget that Subway Series game. That is like that. I was like, dang. The Mets got some swagger now against the Yankees. Lindor's got somebody to back him up, and these two guys are ready to brawl. And I'm like, I'm behind that.
Yeah, but what changed it all was that thumbs down. That even we're still feeling the to this day with Lindor. So yeah, that changed the whole. I think that changed his whole career. To be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
Shea Parking Lot says Toronto needs to sell everyone and stockpile prospects. They have some interesting starting pitchers.
Yes.
One of them used to be on the New York Mets.
Do not. Hey, I know no option is off the table, but this one is off the table.
Yo, you saw his face?
He doesn't want to pitch here. He doesn't want to.
He doesn't. He doesn't.
So why? Wait, go ahead.
I was
doesn't.
I'm
laughing because I know he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't want to be here, and I see people on the timeline, bring him back. Meanwhile, he just gave up 13 runs his last start, so I'm good on that. Oh, bro! But they do have you gotta listen. Toronto's not going anywhere.
Berrios,
so you got Berrios, you got Kevin Gausman. Like, listen, Kevin Gausman is not who he used to be, but again, he still got some pretty good stuff. And again, I will say the word again, he's an innings eater, so I'll take it. And Jose Barrios, I think would be a great pickup. I love the guy. He's a really good pickup.
Were we not close to getting Kevin Gausman in free agency?
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah. The funny thing is that we were close to getting him, and we were close to getting George Springer, and Toronto took them both that same offseason. So
I would definitely kick the tires on a Jose Barrios, and like you said, even Kevin Gossman. I mean, I know he doesn't want to be here, but when Scherzer and DeGrom were down, Bassett was holding down the rotation.
No, he was
he
100%
was.
until we needed him most.
He can pitch here. He just doesn't want to pitch here.
He
That's
doesn't want to pitch here, and I
that's the whole thing.
don't
I don't
want
want
to see
that.
him in a
Yeah.
playoff setting either.
No.
Well, you're gonna get a lot of Tyler McGill and David Peterson in the playoff setting if the Mets figure out a way to get there. You'll get to see a lot of Tyler McGill and his 20 pitch repertoire that he's got.
I feel bad for that brother. Today is his birthday. I hope he doesn't open up social media because he didn't get no nice happy birthday comments from what I saw.
I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to retweet this. All I'm going to do is go in the comments and see what people are saying right now.
They were killing him. They were killing him.
Shea parking lot, and I don't think this is something that would happen now because he's injured. But Shea parking lot is saying, what if we got to give up Ronnie Mauricio for a good starter? Would you do that? I mean, like I said, you're going to give me a good top line starter. That's something I'm definitely going to consider.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think this team is loading up on the middle infield as well. If you look up and down the minor leagues, so does he fit now with Vientos taking up the third base mantle? McNeil's starting to come around, so he's looking like he's a mainstay there. They weren't going to trade him. They probably aren't going to trade him. Maybe in the offseason they do, because he does have a movable deal. But where do you fit Mauricio? Do you put him in as DH? Are you going to trust him with the DH role after JD? Does JD come back? Do you sign a DH? These are all possibilities that they have to think about. So if you're telling me I'm going to get a good starter back, a consistent, reliable starter, a guy sort of like a Luis Severino type level, like a B level starter, I'll take it.
Here's the thing when it comes to Mauricio, and I think that things changed once Mark Vientos started hitting and once he started playing decent third base. Where I could probably leave Mark Vientos at third base if I had to and not have to worry about it. Now, we don't know what's going to happen next year if he hits that kind of sophomore slump when he's hitting, or, if things change for him. But he could hold down third base, at the very least. And I particularly wanted Ronnie Mauricio to be at second base. I thought that his fielding at second base was way better than what I saw from him at third base. So if you could do that and move McNeil or put McNeil in the outfield or make him a utility guy, whatever it is that you got to do, because I don't know if we're going to trade that contract right now, I would do something like that. But to me, the one odd man out is Brett Beatty, because he has not shown that he can play here on a consistent basis. And we've seen now Mark Vientos kind of be that guy that can do. He did it in AAA. He's doing it right now. I mean, what does he have? 14 home runs right now? He's going to have a close to 20 home run season.
Yeah, and his batting average speaks for itself. He got hot quickly and hasn't really cooled down at all. And I think, again, this is a guy that they were moving up and down. Again, we were having talks about it last year. Does Mark Vientos stay? Does Mark Vientos go? At some point, when I was at the Q&A for David Stearns, when they were asking him about a DH, he basically said, I'm looking at my two young guys in Mark Vientos and Brett Beatty filling in that third base / DH role. Nowhere near did he give any indication that he was going to sign JD Martinez. And then when he did, it was kind of like, all right, what do they do with the young guys? Basically, third base. Now they're fighting for third base at this point because we already know who our everyday DH is. In no way, shape, or form did I think that, Mark Vientos was going to be the everyday starter. It seemed like Brett Beatty was going to be that guy, and he just took over. And again, like I said, I'm happy for the kid because this was a guy that was just, he's up when he's up and he's down when he's down. They were bringing him up and down. They didn't know what to do with him. And obviously as a player that kind of eats you alive because you're like, I've been working so hard to be up here and I'm only, I play one game. I don't play the next 3 and then they send me down. So it's like, the fact that he finally got his moment to stay up here. He's producing. I think he's earned the right to start next year, and to be our everyday third baseman. Like I said with Brett Beatty, the brother gets hot in AAA, and yeah, AAA is it's easy for him, but when he gets up here, it's an instant strikeout. And at some point, you're telling yourself, listen, if this is what you're going to be, either you're staying in AAA, or we're going to move you respectably and move you to where a team can use you every day, and you can still try to develop your consistency in the majors, and you won't have to fight for your spot.
It's Seaweed says, why do I feel like the Mets are going to make a trade at 2 a.m.? That's just how the Mets operate. I mean, they make trades at 2 a.m. They fire managers at 2 a.m. I mean, the Mets don't, they operate on a 24-hour basis. And I'm sure, David Stearns is working the phones right now, trying to get us a starting pitcher, maybe trying to get us another relief pitcher, because, we desperately need the help in that pitching staff that we're just not getting right now from the group that's on there. I think if I tend to wonder, if the Mets do pull off a trade for the pitching staff, like the rest of the pitchers kind of are like, oh yeah, all right, man. We needed this. Maybe it changes. Some of these guys get, more out of Luis Severino and Minaya and even, Jose Quintana. So, hopefully that works out, that we do get a starting pitcher, get McGill into the bullpen, maybe even get David Peterson in the bullpen, whatever you have to do. We need a starting pitcher by Tuesday at 6 p.m.
We need a starting pitcher, by Tuesday at 6 p.m. because if not, then things are not going to look so good. The way they are right now, it doesn't seem like an end in sight is near for the starting staff to get it turned around. So it would be nice if somebody could come in and create some stability while we try to navigate.
I know that Carlos Mendoza has to always give that kind of company answer during the press conferences. And he talked about how Peterson and McGill are going to stay in the rotation. How he thought they looked good, and from what he saw from the couple of innings, and it's like, dude, that's like 3 or 4 innings. We need like 5 or 6. And even Tyler McGill yesterday thought he pitched very well. And I'm like, what game are you watching, man? This is you're doing the same stuff you do every outing.
He specifically said, all I did was give up long balls. And when I tell you I wanted to throw my phone at the wall after sitting in the sun watching what he just gave us. And that's your answer. that's your reasoning on your performance. That's what you thought of your performance. It's to me, as much as we joke, to me it's unacceptable. Yeah. Because listen, what killed you was the long balls, but you got to be honest with yourself. For a fact that you have not been the Tyler McGill that we saw in the beginning of 2022. He has not been that. Remember when he was part of that no-hitter that we threw in 2022, he had a 3-0 record with a 3.14 ERA at that point. So he was flying high. All of a sudden he gets hurt. He wasn't here for 2 months. He comes back. They put him in the bullpen. He grew his beard and his hair out. He's never the same again. So he hasn't been the same since. And at some point, if you're Tyler McGill, you gotta think to yourself like, I gotta make some changes here.
Look, his audition for the bullpen has been immaculate. Absolutely immaculate. Great job, man. You got us for 3 innings. You'll be fine just in the bullpen. Armand saying, I have low expectations for the deadline. Rental pitchers is what Stearns will most likely try to trade for, which I agree with. The only thing I'm saying is that if the Mets are going to trade any of their top line prospects, to me, it's only for a guy like he mentioned. It has to be for a guy that has control for a couple of years and is going to be a part of this rotation for a little longer than just this stretch run.
Yeah. Guys that we mentioned before, Crochet and also Schuylkill will be obviously the most likely options that you would look for in a trade like that. We don't think that that'll necessarily happen because if you look at David Stearns' move so far, it's just been rentals. So I think they're going to look for that Band-Aid and then reassess in the offseason.
And you got to remember with Crochet, too, I think he's on somewhat of an innings limit.
Yeah, that was just put out recently, I saw.
Anyone that has an innings limit, I don't want. We
Yeah,
have enough of those.
the good thing with Schoolboy is that he's obviously playing pitching out of his mind. But he has 4 years of control. So if you do go to that route of giving up your prospects to getting a high end starter, you have the option. You have something positive in that end to deal with the fact that he has 4 years of control. And he could be in your rotation for the next year or so. Um, the only thing with the pitcher, I can't say his name for some reason. The pitcher from the White Sox is that again was sort of like a bull. He came out of the bullpen. They're trying to push him as a starter, and he has an innings limit. So that's you kind of have to deal with that a little bit. So that's the only downside to that.
Yeah. Shout out to all 111 of you who are in this room right now. Shout out to my guy Johnny Boy, who decided to join in on the show and chat with us and be a part of this. Appreciate you as well, and everybody that is in here. I want to finish up the show with something a little bit more positive that's been happening with the Mets, and that's to talk about Francisco Lindor, possible MVP. Did you ever think, since he came and arrived here, that he would be getting MVP chance? I mean, you think of the player that we acquired from Cleveland and you're like, yeah, this guy could be MVP. But all the trials and tribulations that he's had to go through to this point, that now the fan base is chanting MVP for Francisco Lindor. And I know he would have to keep up this pace that he's at and kind of not go into any slump at all, kind of like what a Brandon Nimmo is going into at this moment in time. But if he's able to keep up this pace, I mean, he's definitely going to finish like top 5, I would think, in MVP voting. I don't know if he'll win it this year. I mean, obviously, what we've seen from Ohtani, but Ohtani's only a DH. So this guy actually playing a very important position at shortstop. So I don't know. Maybe this is something if Francisco Lindor is able to get this team to the playoffs, if he continues to play the way that he has been. He had a nice play on the field today to save a run, a nice little web gem. I don't know, man. I'm kind of in line with it, and I like seeing the fans chant for him.
Yeah, it's nice to see the fans appreciate him finally. Like I felt like we haven't really embraced him as well as we should have since he's gotten here. And I think that is mainly our fault because he's been nothing but great and gracious with us in our time. And people like to, point to the thumbs down thing, but you got to get over that. And he knows that was a mistake. And ever since then, he's chosen to be a leader and lead the team by example and also be vocal when he needs to be at times and just show that he's a point of consistency when things aren't as consistent as they should be. Lindor's been great. I think that, the fans finally having their moment with him to share their love and people kind of like changing their stance. I see y'all. I notice y'all. You know what I'm saying? Like I see the rebrand, with the Lindor takes. Yeah, I can see what y'all doing, but it's just good to see a good guy, a good class act, a leader, a performer, a guy that has a lot on his shoulders with his contract and with his checkered past with the Mets fan base, a guy that's provided some stability that this franchise hasn't had since number 5 at third base. I think we needed it, and I think that I'm just happy that it's happening. Like it probably is not gonna happen that he becomes MVP, but it's nice that we're able to have that moment with him because I don't think we've had it since he's gotten here.
Right. I think it's well deserved. The guy works hard day in and day out. He's a leader at first. People are always questioning. Oh, he's not a leader. He doesn't do certain things that a leader does. He will be remembered as the guy alongside JD Martinez that held the meeting that turned everything around. If that's not a leader, I really don't know what consists of a leader. The guy day in and day out is amping up his pitchers, is amping up everybody in the dugout. He's always signing autographs with the fans. He's always, amping up himself, trying to get everybody engaged. Like those are things that I respect. And again, he wants to be here. I don't think you would take, regardless of the money, if the only time he was gonna touch free agency for a while. The brother took an extension knowing that he had free agency coming up. He wanted to be here. And he plays hard every day. And like I said, he works hard. We saw a lot of clips in the offseason where he was taking guys like Vientos, like Beatty, and just working out with them. If that's not a leader, I don't know what is a leader. So it's, I'm happy that that the fans are finally giving him his respect, his recognition. My only thing with the people that are making that turnaround, don't make that turnaround. Keep that same energy that you had since 2021, because for some reason, the fact that you still have that energy coming into 2024 after he's shown his last couple years that he's been able to turn it around and be a leader on the team, and you still want to put some negativity on him, you keep that same energy, because it's your life that you hate at this point. You hate Francisco Lindor for no apparent reason. I told Keith this at the game, when it's unfortunate that a lot of the negatives that still put a lot of stuff on Lindor, it's sad that it's going to take that brother to announce his retirement and to get his number retired for people to finally wake up and be like, damn, we had one of the greatest shortstops in this franchise. And I wish that they would wake up and realize it now, which a lot of them are, but there are people that are still kind of like, have their feelings towards him. And it's like, don't wait till this brother announces his retirement from the game for you to finally appreciate what he's done. Appreciate it now while he's in his prime, trying to help us win a ring.
255, 22 home runs, 62 RBIs, 21 stolen bases, and an 807 OPS from what we saw at the beginning of the season. We always talk about the back of the baseball card, knowing that he would turn this around. This is just great to see. I mean, Francisco Lindor has just been what this team has needed. You mentioned the meeting. That was important. You mentioned the fact that he goes to the mound and does Jeremy Hefner's job for him. You talk about the defense that he displays, and he just pumps up the team. They all seem to be, like a group now. Like it feels like a group. Whereas earlier on, you look at 2021, somewhat 2022, it didn't seem like they're like a full group.
Last year they did not.
Yeah, last year was the worst.
Last year was awful. It felt like there were cliques on the team.
Yeah.
And this year feels like everybody is out with the same intention. And it's like, let's not, let's focus on today. And let's just go out there and just play free. And I think that they've, ever since they bought into that mantra of just like, hey, if we are the worst team in baseball, then we have no pressure on ourselves. I think that's been the best brand of baseball that they play. So if they continue to do that, sky's the limit. We've seen it. They have the best record since June 7th. I think it's a date. So,
yeah. Best record in baseball. Everybody could keep bringing up the raccoon thing that happened in 2021 and, Lindor and McNeil not getting along. I was there on Thursday when McNeil got the game-winning hit. First one to hug him and pick him up, Francisco Lindor.
But he didn't buy him a car in time.
But he didn't buy him a flashy car. Remember, it was just a regular car. It wasn't no McLaren. It wasn't no Bugatti, Lamborghini. It was just a regular car. Because mind you, we got people talking about specifics of the car. He got him the car. Let's keep that. He finally got him the car, but it was a type of car.
Do you know how much? You know how much a car costs in this economy? Let's be for real right now. Like, I know he's making a lot of money. I know he's making a lot of money, but you gotta be smart about this. Plus, the guy is Jeff McNeil. He's not gonna drive a Urias around like Brooklyn.
Not driving a Tesla.
Yeah, so come on now. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Guys, this has been a fun show. I appreciate you coming to do this with me, previewing this trade deadline and what's to come. Hopefully there are more moves to come for the Mets, at least the starting pitcher, please.
Yes.
Appreciate that. If you're going to throw another reliever, I'm happy about that too. So do what you can. I know David Stearns is at work here, but as we wrap up this show, David, let everyone know, obviously, about Top Bunk Sports, what to follow you on social media, and what you got working coming up.
Yes, sir. At Top Bunk Sports, obviously, I'm just posting, regular highlights and information on baseball, on basketball as well. With baseball right now, obviously, with the trade deadline coming up, just posting, regular info that you kind of get from your Jeff Passons. For the ones that really don't get it that quick, hope they follow me. I post it a little bit later on. But trying to expand, trying to just keep the movement going. I have a new account, a new fighting account where I post wrestling highlights, MMA highlights, boxing highlights. So I will be announcing it shortly. So for all my fighting fans out there, if you want to be in tune with that as well, I will be playing that as well. But yeah, man, we're in baseball season, and there's a lot of Met content that I'm posting as well. So just stay in tune with that. It's a good time right now.
Absolutely. Key, hit it up for you and your brother, man.
Yeah, man. You can find us at Shea and Sons on Twitter. That's where we're normally based out of. We do post a lot on YouTube. We just did a whole thing on bullpen arms that we want to see the Mets target. Some of the guys are now crossed off of the list, unfortunately, but you can take a look at that as well. Follow Keith at Kicking It with Keith on Twitter, and yeah, you can follow my account as well. Key Bully 19. I'm plugging my brother, but I don't plug myself. Unbelievable. I put it myself. But anyways, yeah, man. Follow us at Shea and Sons. We just love to talk about the Mets with the people, right or wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to everyone in the chat. Thank you so much for being a part of this show and joining with us, being a part of, this whole conversation as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline. You can follow me, Subway to Shea, on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me personally at Rivera86 and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Like I said, we got a lot of work that needs to get done. This team's not finished yet. So, even though we lost 2 games, I don't want panic to set in on this team at this moment in time. Let's see the finished product by the trade deadline, see what David Stern's got cooking up, and then we could talk and move forward. The biggest thing for me is, like I said, if you could get Adam Ottavino and Jake Diekman off this team, great. If you can get Tyler McGill away from the starting rotation, even better. And maybe it has to be Tyler McGill going in the bullpen that has to get rid of Adam Ottavino.
I've been preaching that. Put him in the bullpen, see what you got for 2 innings here and there. Try to feed him into that Trevor Williams role. If you got to take Budo out and make him a starter, ease him into that role. Maybe it works out.
It works.
You can't just DFA him, because I think that McGill can at least give you an inning. So at least try it, see where it goes, and continue from there.
I agree. And bye, Starling Marte. Bye. Your time is done.
Yeah, Starling Marte is pretty much finished. Like I said, with the Jesse Winker trade, I don't see him returning this season. I think that bone injury is more serious than has been talked about. Thankfully, and hopefully Bader's doing okay and is coming back soon. So you can have Bader, Winker, Nimmo, and you got Tyrone Taylor. I think that rotation of outfielders is just fine, and I'm good with it. I'll be fine with that moving forward. So, yeah, like you said, goodbye, Starling Marte, if that's the case. And we're going to wrap it up here. We're saying bye to you guys. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you guys after the trade deadline. We'll be talking about what the Mets did or didn't do, and we'll be moving forward as the Mets march to a possible playoff spot in the wild card. We'll see what happens. But for Anthony Rivera, for my guy Keshawn, for my guy David, it's been Subway to Shea podcast. And always remember, let's go Mets.
Go Mets, baby.
Let's go.